Reboots are a good idea, but oftentimes they end up doing more harm than they do good. So many franchises have been killed or stayed dormant after launching a reboot. The Crash and Spyro reboots to give a couple examples. Maybe the series is looking to bring new life into the series, which can work in some cases, but in others, well, it can just alienate the original fans of the product. Reboots can and have worked in the past with the likes of Tomb Raider and Doom, but sometimes they can turn out like Sonic 06 and whatever that Bomberman reboot was. Now, with all of that information out of the way, DMC Devil May Cry. I'm glad the game didn't get a sequel based on the title alone, Jesus Christ. Horrible name aside, I actually haven't heard that much about this game ever. It came out as an attempt to draw in more fans to the Devil May Cry series, but didn't sell as much as Capcom wanted it to, aka the game didn't even sell that badly. So, as a result, they just kind of left it there as the awkward part of the family that nobody likes talking about, and a couple years later, they went and did DMC 5. And I feel like that, oddly enough, helped this game out. Now the game can be seen for what it was, and not what it wasn't. And hopefully that allows it to be better seen by the eye of the public. Now, I do want to say that I'll be playing the PC version, which lacks a couple of things from the enhanced PS4 version, but I think I'll be just fine without the extra features. That's all the time for needless talking, because seriously, I just want to get onto DMC 5 and finish this marathon at this point, oh my god. The game starts out and the first thing that we see is a businessman. Go on. And then a man having a threesome. The fuck? The game is a completely different timeline from the normal DMC timeline, but it still shares some similarities to the original games. But one of the things it does not share is our favorite Devil Hunter because... and I know this is beating a dead horse. I too am about to complain about Dante's design and personality. Generally, the design isn't even the problem. The design is fine, it's passable, it's serviceable, and it gets the job done. It's achieving everything that it's trying to be, and for that, it works. The problem is that they're trying to pass this as a character that looks and more especially acts entirely different from Dante as Dante. Capcom was at their office thinking with Team Ninja, actually, how involved was Capcom with the game? I know they were involved in at least making Dante's design the way that it is. Whatever. They were thinking with Team Ninja on how to make Dante more relatable, and probably underpaid intern screamed out. Sucks. I am not gonna lie, I stopped paying attention to the plot immediately after that cutscene because it just really left a bad impression in my mouth, and from what I understand, I wasn't really missing out on much. The story is apparently quite mediocre, and the ending isn't even that satisfactory, so I'm glad to know that I avoided that bullet. I think that it's fine to try and appeal to the West and whatnot, but what part about this is in any way relatable? Let alone appealing. The story has Dante team up with his brother, who he just remembered even existed, and try to take down Mundus, the villain from the first game. Yeah, the businessman? Yeah, that's him. I could have never guessed. Listen, I'm not about to criticize the story any more than I just did, because really, that's all that I know of the main story. Again, I did not pay attention to it whatsoever. I skipped every cutscene. I just didn't really find the main character to be that appealing, and he's not normally that I would normally root for. But whatever. Also, I just have to call this out for a second. Virgil's redesign looks like an employee at a hotel. Now hold on there, bastard. What about the underrated part of the title that you capitalized? Wait a minute, just let me cook for a second. The story was a story that starts and ends. However, what the game lacks in the story department, it more than makes up for it in the gameplay because, and I may just be spitting hot takes in this place, but I feel like the gameplay is just as good, if not a bit better than even Devil May Cry 3. The game has the same structure as the prior games. Stages are definitely more linear now, but I never really found that to be an issue because I found the stages to be good enough. Maybe a bit basic at times, but overall the stages I found very enjoyable. Now the thing that really matters and the thing that I really want to get into is the combat of the game, you know, the bread and butter. The thing that will either make you like the game or despise it. And I am glad to say that the gameplay is an absolute blast. I feel like the thing that I noticed the most when playing the game was that the enemies were much more fun to fight than the enemies in DMC 3, and more so especially DMC 4. Some may still take a time to fully master fighting against, but a lot of the time they're still pretty fun. and sometimes you do have to think, otherwise you will get smacked around silly. Like, there's some enemies that have insane amounts of super armor and are tanky, and the entire 9 yards. But they are also fun to fight. Their attacks are well telegraphed, there's a certain challenge to them, and I feel like the reason that I like these enemies so much is also because I like the moveset that they gave Dante for this game. When starting the game, I was getting fucking bamboozled by the control scheme. Launching enemies in the air has its own dedicated button now, there's a dodge roll, there's no lock on, and to use different weapons you have to press one of the triggers and then press the attack button. Muscle memory is a bitch when it comes to this control scheme, but once I fully got used to the control scheme, it all felt completely natural, and I gotta tell you that playing the game simply felt good. It definitely has to do with the animations and the visual effects as well. I mean, when I hit a motherfucker with these hands, that shit's crunchy! Many of the weapons are very fun as well. In this game you have 5 weapons: the sword, the fist, the axe, the scythe, and the shuriken, and they simply feel satisfying to use. The weapons all feel powerful, they have impact, and I always feel like using all these weapons, which is something that not even DMC3 managed to do. I wasn't that big of a fan of the guitar, and even other weapons like the fists I didn't like as much as the others. The levels are also surprisingly distinct from each other and feel very memorable, and I, again, have to thank the graphics for that. I really like the way in which the game looks. I already mentioned how I like the animations for the weapons as it gives them importance and impact, but I also like the way in which the world is designed. In the game, oftentimes you get transported into what they call limbo, which is like an alternate version of the human world, and oftentimes it takes the normal looking places of the human world and twists them around their head, quite literally in one of the levels. Ignoring the main characters and villain, I generally do think that the game is very visually pleasing, and really on the topic of presentation, the only thing that I'll say I'm a bit underwhelmed by is the lack of good, memorable music like the other games. Is it just me or am I finally running out of creative things to say about these games? I think the creative burnout is finally kicking in, woo joy! DMC Devil May Cry is a really fun game. It nails the gameplay so damn well and the graphics are incredibly good. It's just a shame that the story and music were so subpar, otherwise it could have been even better than it already was. But hey, that's all the time that I have for today. I'm just a random stranger you met on the internet. But hey, just call me Suro.